Well, hello, and first I'm very grateful to receive this prize for my poetry, and I thank Stephen and Susan and Jim Hall. Susan already explained how the work got generated. So the other thing that happened is I would read these four poems, plant poems I call them, about being with plants. And for the installation in Munich, I would read them, and then Richard would choose how to install the pieces by by the space that my voice created. When we finished, we were very surprised and humbled that the space that we had made by this process was very, very similar to the space in the first collaboration we did for the Whitney Museum, in which we had met each other. So I'm going to read the four poems that generated the installation. They're published in this book called Hello the Roses. This is a cover by Richard, and it's published by New Directions, and the great editor who helped me with these is here today, Jeffrey Yang. The first poem is called Glitter, and well, I live in New Mexico. We live mostly in New Mexico, but we had many, many years of drought there since about 2001, and so we began to go to Maine for the summers. Also, I imagined a greener world in my mind, and these poems come from that imagination. This one is, I was thinking about the structures of identity and how identities can resonate with each other, and how identity needs ego. A wood violet has bloomed when I come back from my walk in early spring. I stop and welcome it, cooing, walking around it, not as if I were floating, but the surface of the world circled, unfurling petals. Person and violet with so little in common, my voice reveals as a resonance of identity. The violet, looking back, loses objectivity and enters the expansion of recognized things. You could say our identities reach out to encompass the forest environment, like telepathy. A moment opens space by rendering it transparent in intensified consciousness. Others embrace weather and wild land as their means to the supra-sensible. In violets, its emotional desire for spring light. Glitter, the mirror. Connection, often the form emotion takes, appears to me as a visual image. Thoughts are sent out by one rock, informing other rocks as to the nature of its changing environment. The angle of sun and temperatures cooling as night falls, and even its loosely called emotional tone changes, the appearance of a person walking who's not appropriately empathic. Thoughts meet and merge with other thoughts sent out, say, from foliage and other entities. I tell you, your own thoughts and words can appear to inhabitants of other systems like stars and planets to us. Intensities of thought, light and shadow between us, contain memories coiled one within the other, through which I travel to you, and yet are beautifully undetermined. For what you say to me is not finished within my thought or memory, but you grow there and change, the way a shadow extends as light passes over it in akashic emptiness. You grow through what I have to say to you, as a tree grows up through space. Then what I have to say changes. That's why we need the identity of our physical forms. Here, we don't know what's behind physical stars and planets. The tree encompasses its changing form, while ego, myself of physical experience, looks in the past for something to recognize. When he looks into my eyes, she said, I see adoration, then I can do things. Here we mean sun, alteration, myself, our actions. Imbalance between identities wished to maintain and intrinsic drives results in the exquisite byproduct, consciousness of self, so richly creating a reality that seems plastic but continues like a light beam, an endless series of beams. Creativity breaks through identity, and my awareness flows through transparency, as spontaneous phenomena experienced with others today. Its light and weather spectacles are fantastically aesthetic. The moment it sees me, the violet grows more deeply purple and luminous to me. Its looking collapses violet frequency into a violet in the world, cohering attention and feeling. What I perceive as a flower in woods may be the shadow of a flower being's action in fairyland, a transcendent domain of potentia. Transparency, I imagine, moving through, is being through, not actually seen or touched, not the buzz of a million invisible bees. What you call feeling, like connective tissue or vibrating lines between us, represents this vitality. And I prefer the term vitality to time. In fairyland, all violets are simultaneous. I've been sitting looking at a plant without feeling time at all, and my breathing is calm. There are tiny white rosettes, and the whole bush is a glory of feathery pink seed heads here in the arroyo. Even with closed eyes, I see roses in the center of my sight, new ones opening with pink petals illuminated by low sun behind me, and gray-green leaves. There's no stopping this effusion. Looking at the plant releases my boundaries, so time is not needed for experience. Late afternoon is like a stage, a section of vaster landscape, and my mood is of a summer idyll. The dry arroyo sparkles all around. Meaning I come upon on wild land strikes me at first as a general impression. Then joy suffuses me. I accept that I've aged, and some friends have died. I repeat the words freshness, tenderness, softness, the happiness of birds, as if speaking directly to a plant. Sun lights the profusion of pink plumes, thousands of feathery seed heads already reaching into empty space where I've taken a branch. That space was left open by the vision I'm having now. I hold my first sight of the Apache plume and this moment next to each other. I go back and forth comparing them. I see her multiple aspects as living representations, her symbiosis with birds, relation to originary plants, one as medicine administered by the oracle. These aspects are not referred to, not associative, but intrinsic to my sight. As slowly gaps diminish and missing images appear or experience fills in, one transforms to another along an extended multi-dimensional axis of seeing the plant. It's not a metaphor for the flow of our surroundings. One day you need a plant you don't know in order to connect pieces in yourself or in a person you're trying to be with. It may be a rose bush at the end of the road, a summer rose, whitish on the outside of each petal and pink inside, expressing its gestalt visually. When a plant receives this kind of communication, it begins altering chemicals its wavelengths reflect in order to offer itself to your imaginal sight for you to gather it. The plant or another person awakes from embedding in the livingness of the world and takes notice of your request. The internal chemistry of plants is one primary language of response that they possess. Through this method of your perception of its color, its fragrance, and infusion of its petals, you not only receive molecules of plant compound itself, but also meaning in yourself the plant is responding to. So there is meaning in a chemical compound. Even though the rose I want is in the garden of my friend I miss, another reveals itself in late light in the arroyo when I'm alone. A wild rose, Delphic. Illness is not healed simply by supplying something rose-colored and lovely as a medicinal opiate. The beauty provides form for meaning. And though it does help my body form to form, I'm not only what my senses perceive, and my disease not just a physical absence virus fills. When my fluctuating electromagnetic field touches that of another person, plant, or entity, emotion is my perception of data encoded in that field. So when a plant projects coherent energy, others respond and become more animated, open, connected. They use this amplified field to shift biological function. DNA alters, there's communication across distance. Organisms can intentionally insert information to strengthen cooperation among, for example, an Apache plume, ants, and an agave in the riverbed. Like human families, whose interweaving, loving bonds represent the long-term incorporation of supportive, coevolutionary new fields. You and I nest within many such fields from a rose.